After the session, we'll be sending a link to you at that time. Typically, the links go out the next day. So our session today is integrating shop management, ERP, and quality management for success, fast, efficient, seamless. Couple of housekeeping things first. The presentation is scheduled to last about 45 minutes. We'll have a Q&A session in the middle, as well as one at the end. Any questions that are not answered during the session we'll take care of by email later on. That will be direct to whoever asked the question. We've got two presenters today, plus a customer. Today's presenters start with Brian Anderson from ProShop. Brian's been with ProShop for over 20 years, been a machinist, shift lead, a scheduler, and right now he is working in the implementation and onboarding areas. We also have Chris Mendicino from High QA. Chris has just been moved into the VP of product position. Chris has got a very deep background in CAD/CAM, shop floor management systems, and now quality management, of course. He acts as the voice of the customer for our product development team, so that whatever comes through your channels actually helps get the product into a better position. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to Brian, who's going to start with his presentation. Brian?
Better, I can unmute myself here.
Yep.
All right. Well, let me just get my screen share moving. Thank you all for joining. It's great to see so many people attending today. So I'd like to start out with just a quick little history of ProShop, kind of where we came from, what we do, and why we do what we do. So we were actually founded in, sorry, one second. Whoops, there we go. We were founded in 1997 as ProCNC. We were a small machine shop at the time. In fact, I came on in 2000 and I was employee number 8, so fairly small company, but with a strong drive to be in the manufacturing world. The company was started by folks from Western Washington University and the Vehicle Research Institute, and they wanted to continue what they did there out in the real world. As we grew, we went into all sorts of, obviously, machining, but engineering, doing complex assemblies, and handling whatever needs our customers threw at us. In 2000, which happened to be the year that I came onto the company, we outgrew the system we were using, which was just Excel. Nothing fancy, nothing too crazy, but we definitely felt that we needed something that would grow with us. So we started looking at options, looking at ERP systems, and really didn't like what we found. So we just started to develop ProShop in 2000 as a way to meet all of the needs that we had. And in doing so, we decided to do a couple sort of key things, which are really important at this point in time. One of them is that we started in a web browser environment, and that seems to have kind of stuck with us over the last couple decades. And we're native in that field, so we have an easy to use software. And we also built everything to match our growth. So when we decided to go more into aerospace, we built tools in the system to help us manage aerospace. We built tools to help us manage engineering and complex assemblies, etc. We got our first customer in 2008. That happened to be already an existing customer for us. They were buying parts from us. They were really interested in what we were doing with the software and convinced us to sell it to them, even though we were a machine shop and not a software company. But they saw some pretty dramatic improvements in their first year. And so we sort of stepped back and said, well, you know what, let's really kind of focus on this and see what we can do. In 2014, we sold the machining company and focused on the software company. At the time, we had grown to about 75 employees, close to 30 CNC machines, and doing a bit over 11 million in annual revenue. So the big picture What are we doing now? What are we looking to do as a software company? Well, we want to help all of our customers do what they do best. We want to help them by giving them a system to have what they need to manage the work that they get, whether that's in aerospace, in more commercial, medical environments, any of the things that they need to operate. We have what I like to call sort of a front door to back door sort of approach to the system. So we try to incorporate everything that you need into one system. So you're not trying to patch together different softwares or different techniques and processes to meet all of your needs. We do it in a paperless environment. As I said, we're a web-based software. So you can do almost everything that you do just simply right from a desk, right to the point where you need to start receiving material and making product. With that, you can work remotely, work from home. That's kind of something that is important right now. We have a lot of people that have experienced a lot of sort of quarantine, myself included. But what we found is that the vast majority of the planning, even purchasing work, estimating, all of that stuff can be done if you have a computer wherever you are. It's not uncommon to be able to work from home, work from remote offices or any of that kind of stuff until you get to the point of actually needing to be in the shop to you know, like I said, receive parts, run jobs, do the inspection, etc. All right, let's move on and take a quick look at ProShop itself. So we're a module-based system. We can track everything. We can take a look and move into estimates. When we're building estimates, we can quickly see the different processes we're going to need to actually manufacture the product. We can understand what the different resources we need, how much time everything takes, what are out-of-pocket costs. So by plugging in those three things, our process, time, and out-of-pocket costs, the system will calculate for us pricing, and we can quickly build a quote, send that off to customers. When we build quotes, we want to make sure that we can leverage this data further on. One of the things that we picked up on pretty early on in our process was that we simply didn't want to be replicating data in the system. We didn't want to have somebody pay somebody, honestly, to be able to put data in the system that was already there. So we take a pretty strong approach to being able to take all of the information that we've put in at some point and move it forward. Like in this example, we've gone from a quote to a customer PO with the click of a button. I'm actually going to go back a little bit here and take a look at my sort of pre-configured stuff. So when I take a look at my customer purchase order, here's where I link together everything that the customer needs. I have a record for doing my part planning. So here, my part planning, it looks very similar to my estimate, but this is where I'm going to put in all of my information that I need for purchasing, all the information that I need for the shop floor, my inspection planning, which in a little bit, Chris will actually take a closer look at the inspection planning and what that looks like. I can put in my work instruction, everything that needs to be done specifically at the shop floor, at the machine, any of that kind of stuff goes here to my part record. I link into my work order. So a lot of people will recognize this as sort of a job traveler. What am I doing to get the customer's needs met? What date is due to the customer? When do they have to leave here? What's my purchasing status on any of the different things? Like I can quickly see purchasing status for my material. I can go into my material and take a look at where I'm buying it. What is my expected arrival date? And what's the status? Has it been received or not? In a little bit, we'll also take a look at how we link in all customer requirements in terms of the reporting to the customer. So documenting anything from material certifications, inspection reports, COCs, et cetera, any of that kind of stuff. We want to make sure that we can quickly address those things and get those to the customer on time. When I create a new work order, they're automatically going to appear on my schedules, and our schedules are live. So they get not only feedback and new work created and entered automatically, but they're also going to update based off of information that's been put in from my customer, or sorry, I apologize, from my staff as they run product. If I take a look at this job here, Typical day in the life of a machinist. They would be coming here, they would be taking a look at the operation they're going to work on, and they can track their time. They can say that they're running production. The system knows what work order they're on, what work centers they're on, etc., and it'll be logging that data. From here, they get to see their full setup overviews. What work holding do they need? What fixtures are going to be needed? They can see their cutting tool list. And if they need to know more information about their cutting tools, they can open that up and they can see the specific criteria for the cutting tool, purchasing information, inventory information. Where is this tool? If it's out in the shop already, I can see at a glance, where should I find this tool in the shop? I can see I've already got one in the machine that I'm about to run. That's great. I can see notes and written run descriptions with pictures if I want. So this is great if you have a high repeat job, or if you're planning a job that you want to put an entry-level operator on. You can have very explicit instructions. On the inspection side, we can record our inspection results. We can link in our actual prints, however we do that. And again, Chris will have a pretty close look at how this works here in just a minute. But we can link all that in. We can link in our inspection plans and record our results. I can also record in-process inspection. So I have a special inspection plan that just gives me the key points that I want to inspect are in the process instead of the entire first article. And now I can say that I've run some parts. I can log all that stuff, and maybe I just want to go log out, go to lunch, what have you. I'll just enter my completed number of parts. And when I go back to my schedule, you'll notice that when I reload this, my time shrinks because I've taken and produced the 10 parts that I just produced. So we get a live feedback system from our scheduling side of things, and we get to see what is happening in real time. So anytime I want to move forward and know what's going on, it's a simple matter of just checking in with the machinist and saying, well, what's our current rate? And they can update those times for me. When we move into some of the sort of latter things, when we're talking about moving through I'm just pulling up an old record here. We're talking about moving through the very end. We want to collate all our data to the customer. So this is an example of a work order that's been completed. Get it all the way through into the final inspection. We do our document prep here. So because we have collated all our stuff along the way, we've put in inspection plans. The machinists and inspectors have entered their results. We've pulled in all our material certs at the point of receiving, or any other things, any items that need to be done. The system knows exactly what I need for this customer, and with the click of a button, I can get all of my certifications pulled in onto a single page. It's going to actually tell me if I'm missing something, so it's going to do a check for me and say, hey, you have an item that we were expecting to find certs, but nothing showed up, so now I get the notice saying, hey, I need to do something. You'll see all of my material certs, my plating certs are linked in, etc., all the way down. And then I get some first article reporting as well. Again, all on a single page, so I can quickly print these off and get them to my customer. Usually this is the kind of thing that happens, right around 2 o'clock when you can see the UPS truck coming down the road. We will actually be able to get in and do packing slips and invoicing as well. So if we take a look at an existing packing slip, this gets created automatically with the click of a button, pulls in how many pieces that I've made, so it knows exactly what I'm shipping. We can create an invoice from here as well. And this invoice can then be added to an accounting package like QuickBooks or Sage products, which we integrate with. I don't have that integration on my demo system today, but it's literally just a click of a button, and it will send this into the accounts receivable side of your accounting system. All right, so that's a pretty quick look at the overall process in ProShop. Actually, one additional thing I wanted to mention is we have a full suite of QMS for managing all of the all of your company's QMS documents, whether you're AS or ISO certified. All of those modules exist in ProShop, complete with quality manuals, quality procedures, etc. So just wanted to kind of mention that. I don't know if that doesn't always apply to everybody, but that's a feature that is included with the system. All right, so I think we want to turn it over now to Matt. I believe I left you enough time, but here, let me see. Matt, are you with me?
Matt, you're on mute.
Yep, here I am. Just to
Okay. And while we're doing that transition, just let me remind everyone that there's a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. If you have any questions during the session, please go ahead and click that button and ask your question. Over to you, Matt.
Hi, everybody. I am Matt Rody. I am the COO. Sorry, it's been a long day already. The COO at 3D Industries in Bensenville, Illinois. We have been using ProShop for about 4 years. We started in January, we went live of 2017. We've been using High QA along with ProShop basically the entire time. We opted for ProShop for a lot of the reasons that Brian has already explained and pointed out. And then we went with High QA for the exact same reasons. The support that we get from both ProShop and the gentleman at High QA is second to none. The quality of the product that we've received has been fantastic. And the usage that we get out of it, the time savings and the benefits that both myself and my employee receive from the integration has been substantial. I can tell you that, again, the support that we've gotten from both sides has been tremendous. The onboarding and implementation for ProShop is substantial, as you can imagine, with the system of the breadth and depth that ProShop has. The integration for High QA was made very quick and very easy. It has significantly reduced the time and effort that it takes to develop all of our in-process and our final quality documentation, as well as all of our preparation to get the information into the system that my operators need. The data exchange between the two has actually been the key factor. Ballooning our prints, even using just the print ballooning and the import of the data to ProShop, at a bare minimum, you will see an enormous improvement as we did. And that doesn't even begin to cover the advanced topics and the advanced uses of both High QA and ProShop. Just at the most basic level, there's a significant improvement in our operations and everything that we were doing. There is a reduction in opportunity for human error, utilizing the automation that comes with the interchange between ProShop and High QA that's been automated. Our operations have continued with High QA at the forefront of our quality department, expanding into some of the more advanced features that they have. The SPC, the data tracking over time, when we have to analyze for level 4 PPAPs, anything significantly beyond FAIs and do studies, the High QA team has been there to support. I have reached out. I am as you guys can imagine, we do as an aerospace company, our customers are extremely particular, which means we have to be very particular. So we have leaned on both the ProShop gentleman and the High QA gentleman time and time again to make sure that we are implementing and finding the right solutions that work for us. It has always landed in success with minimal to no headache. And it has helped us not only advance, but advance more aggressively. Our acceleration has increased, not only our velocity towards finding solutions. Over time, I've seen reductions in complicated prints, especially. You can imagine trying to balloon, everybody's done it, I'm sure at this point, balloon a print that has 400 plus dimensions on it and is 8 pages long. Will take hours. Entering that data as well will take hours and will consume multiple people to complete the task, to verify that it was done properly. And we can take those hours and hours and hours over several individuals. So doubling, tripling that in man hours, and shrink that to less than 30 minutes in many cases because of the automation that we've gotten. We have consistently done new jobs. We do several new jobs every week for all of our customers. We do medium volume production and proto work. The proto work doesn't have any less requirements than our production work does. So we utilize the capabilities that we get between High QA and ProShop, whether we're making 3 parts or whether we're making 3,000 parts. So we have received extreme benefit from the time savings and labor savings based on all of the automation and all of the support that both of these teams have given 3D Industries over the last several years.
Thanks for that, Matt. That's really nice to hear. I'm glad that we've been able to help out so much. That's honestly why we do what we do. We love to hear that. So thank you very much.
And Matt does have a limitation on his time. So if anyone has questions specifically for Matt and 3D Industries implementations, please enter that into the Q&A now so that he can answer it before he has to depart from the session.
Jack, there is an 11:20 question about implementation,
Yep.
realistic time frame. If you can run that question, please, by Matt.
Yeah, Matt, you should be able to see the questions there.
Yep, I've got a couple up here.
Okay.
So
There's
the
an
first one is
11:20 and
a realistic
11:22
time
for you.
frame.
Yeah, 10:20 for you.
I've got the first question is listed as an anonymous attendee, but it asks about the realistic time frame for the completion of data entry at the beginning of implementation, specifically customers, tools, gauge directories, etc. This is actually a really quick process. It's got multiple benefits. ProShop has developed tools which in essence, at the most basic level, are very simple. They're import sheets where you can put in the appropriate information from your old system and get those into ProShop in a couple of quick steps, with the added benefit of forcing you to sort through that information and only bring in the good stuff and leave out the things that you should realistically leave out. So practicing good information in, good information out.
Yeah, and a little bit, another quick point on that. So in general with ProShop, we typically find, and every company's different, of course, so you know that you have to take this in context, but generally speaking, 6 to 8 weeks is the implementation process that gets you up and running in ProShop and out of the whatever old systems you happen to be using. So in that time, you would be going through the pace that you agree with your implementation specialists, all of those different items and being able to address all of those things in the way that suits you. So some of those things you might, like maybe your equipment or gauges, you might not choose to put into ProShop at the very beginning. You might wait a couple weeks in the process to pull them in so you understand exactly what the ramifications are for all the different associations that we have built into the system.
Absolutely true.
All right, so it looks like we have a few more that's kind of popped in there. Yeah, do you want to keep going on those just from right from that anonymous one there?
Yep. I'm trying to shoot people text answers back as well as questions kind of pour in. Let's see. Dave Olson, what does 3D Industries use for AS9102 Form 3 before High QA? At this point, we are maintaining for a lot of what we do at ProShop as a system of record. So we're using ProShop as to produce our AS9102. We have recently talked with Chris specifically about moving that into High QA as we begin to collect higher amounts of data. NetInspect, as far as the NetInspect requirements go, we do not actively do NetInspect. I've played with it and I fiddled with it. Brian may be able to answer anything about NetInspect better than I have, as I don't have a whole lot of personal experience with the NetInspect aspect of ProShop.
Sure. Yeah, with NetInspect, basically what you have with ProShop is it can export directly into NetInspect on their web interface to import the inspection results right up into NetInspect. It's a fairly simple process. There's not a whole lot of magic on that particular one, but we do support that. I'm not sure Chris can speak to anything that the integrations that High QA has with that. I don't know that one.
Yeah, NetInspect is basically a data exchange for your FAI results that certain buyers or OEMs require their suppliers to utilize as a sharing interface. So it's a cloud-based tool, and so both ProShop and High QA have export options to export data directly into that platform if your customer requires you to use it. So.
Matt, there is a question by Brian at 23 after the hour. What data exchange with other applications?
Data exchange.
If you have any data exchange with other applications like the accounting system, CMM. Yeah.
Okay. So what we are doing currently is we are integrated and exchanging data with both QuickBooks and High QA to manage all of our accounting and our quality information. There are other applications in the works. Brian mentioned Sage, in case you're using Sage as opposed to QuickBooks, and Mastercam and several others. We're currently working to integrate Calypso from the Zeiss CMMs. We have a Contour and a Duramax into ProShop as well. That's something Chris and I have been speaking about. So there is a lot that's already open and available, and there is a whole lot more coming down the pipeline.
And Matt, there's one right below that from 24 after the hour from an anonymous attendee.
Asking if you're
So-
using the SPC as well on the High QA side, or you plan to use, yeah.
So we do not use the SBC in full force right now. Those are the discussions I've been having with Chris. As of recently, we've been doing some testing with all of our folks on the floor, and so far, even my guys who have, we'll say, a more difficult time with technology have found it very straightforward and pretty easy to use. And
Okay.
I've got a note saying Jack would like to weigh in on that one.
Actually, I just did that so that we recognize that the question was answered.
Got it.
Yep. And then one right below that, do you use a scheduling portion? How is that working for you?
So the scheduling portion we use every day. I am typically living in a schedule. It's one of the windows that I have open all day, every day. It works fantastically. As someone in the past who's had experience with several systems, E2, Epicor, JobBoss, Global Shop, you name it, Plex, I can truthfully say that the scheduling in ProShop is simpler to the degree that I am thrilled it is simpler, and is far more flexible and easier to use than any of the other systems that I've worked within. It's been super effective for us, and I've even gotten to the point where I'm transitioning the responsibility of managing the schedule onto the leads of all the different departments, and they're able to manage it on their own as we chop it up into smaller bits for them, because ProShop makes it very easy and straightforward to deal with.
Great. Thank you, Matt. I don't see any additional questions that are specifically addressed for you. So with that, we should turn it over to Chris. And Matt, thank you very much for participating today. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'd like to mention, we do have a few other questions there that I think that Chris and I can both answer. It's kind of along the way. So we do see that there's a few extra questions there still. So we'll get to them.
Yep, we'll handle those at the Q&A session after Chris's portion of the presentation.
Yep. Excellent. All right. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Matt, especially. All right, great. So you guys should be able to see my screen now, I believe.
Yes, we see.
Check. Okay, just want a quick confirmation. So yeah, so for the last section of this, I just wanted to take a little bit of time going over the high QA side, right? So we've talked about ProShop, and we got to the point where we say in ProShop that they can handle all of the inspection and such for your work orders through a part check info. And so there's kind of like a list of dimensions and characteristics that need to be checked within each work order that you're running through your shop floor. And so there's the need to generate a ballooned PDF and the inspection plan. And so with ProShop, you would be kind of typing in that data and such, and that's why they partnered with us, is to bring some automation to that, as you heard Matt Rody share. And so what we do is we introduce some really advanced OCR technology. We feel that it is the best and most advanced on the market, and we have our customers and prospects and anybody that we've worked with has all confirmed that. And so you don't necessarily have to just take our word for it. We have not heard anything to the contrary. So I wanted to take you through kind of a quick walkthrough of the product to see how that works, so you can get a feel for this side of the process. So Inspection Manager is a database-driven application. It's an SQL backend, so that right there is a differentiator from other ballooning packages on the market that are more flat file based. They tend to be less scalable than a formal SQL database backend like what we have, and so it gives us some unique flexibilities within the system. And so I'm going to kind of address Inspection Manager at two levels. So there's one level at which we're solving that quick, immediate need within ProShop of bringing some automation to the ballooning of the prints and exporting some data up into ProShop, okay, to populate the inspection plan information. And then there's kind of a secondary way of looking at Inspection Manager where this is a full quality management sort of ecosystem for handling anything related to your inspections. So we can get very in depth with building inspection plans at really discrete details, as well as doing data collection from the shop floor, from your CMM equipment, running SBC analytics and advanced reporting techniques and all of that. So I want to kind of address it at those two scales there as we go through here. So when we first get started, we would say new from drawing, and we would go and bring in a PDF that we're going to balloon. All right, so I'll open this up in the system. And we would start off with something like this. And so we have our drawing area that we can work with, and our bill of characteristics where all of the dimensional criteria will be populated down here below. So you can see I've got this part number that I'm working with, and I can set up kind of all my units, my decimal tables and such for applying tolerances to general tolerance dimensions and so on. But I'm just going to jump right into the ballooning side of this. We can come up here to our auto ballooning function. Now I have some options in here of whether I want to balloon basic, reference, or general tolerance dimensions. I can also split sub characteristics. What that means is if I have a particular feature here like this hole, and it has a diameter check, a thread, and then a true position. So there's multiple checks for one feature. We can either balloon that with one balloon number as a single feature, and it would be broken up into, like, let's say this is balloon number 2. It would be broken up into 2.1, 2.2, 2.3. And so some people really like that. It provides some advantages for syncing with CMMs. Or we can split the sub characteristics and call this feature number 2, 3, and 4. Some people prefer that and having individual balloons there. So there's all kinds of flexibilities like that that we can apply here. So I'm just going to run this though. So this auto ballooning, it can run over multiple pages. So as Matt suggested, they have prints that are over 400, 500 characteristics on the print, and 8, 9 pages, whatever they are. We have some customers that are substantially larger than that, that work with drawings that are huge assembly drawings, and just very large parts where they're checking upwards of 5 to 10,000 characteristics over 200, 300, 400 pages. And so very large drawings, and we can still auto balloon those. So this is auto ballooning this particular page and looking for all of the dimensional criteria. It's going to apply a balloon to or a unique ID to each of these dimensions, and it's also going to interpret and extract the characteristics. There's nothing special about this PDF. There's no intelligence there. It's scanning it as an image. Okay, so it's going to look at that and populate the bill of characteristics down here below. Okay, and so those are two important stages that we talk about there, is that applying of the balloon number and then also the interpretation. That's the value that we're bringing here. So you can see the intelligence of this just right here, that of what I just mentioned. So we've got the balloon numbers that get applied like so, and we've got the bill of characteristics that gets populated here. So just to give you an idea, right, we've got this particular dimension here that I mentioned earlier, that it's got multiple characteristics, and it brought in all of the details of this. So you can see the 2.1 through 2.3, it understands that those are a diameter, a thread, and a true position check. It brought in the requirements. It brings in the nominal upper and lower tolerancing of everything, if applicable, and any notes that are applied there as well. Okay. So really, a hugely convenient tool and a huge time saver. As Matt had suggested, you heard him say that this, for some of the drawings that they would work with, it would take hours and hours to work with, and he's able to bring that down to half an hour to an hour, depending on the complexity of the print, right? And so we can do some other things to augment this, right? The auto ballooning looks for dimensions, right? But we may have notes as well. So I just grabbed my note ballooning tool, and I can just capture a few notes here like this. Like so. I'm just going to grab a few of these like that, and you'll see it's processing them right now, and it's going to extract all of the text just like this and apply the unique balloon numbers like so. I'll mention something just so for context. I'm working with a developer preview right now just to be able to show a few new features, but the OCR is a little slower in this developer preview. In a full production version, this part typically balloons in about 23 seconds, and these balloons pop up a little more instantaneously as you're working with them. So just a little caveat there to think of. So from here, what I can do now in ProShop, I'll pull up the ProShop demo that we had. So in ProShop, you can see I've got that same part number here, and Brian had gone through and built this sort of a rough routing for this with a couple of jobs. And so what I would want to do is correlate my inspection plan to the particular routing steps at which dimensions are inspected. Okay, so we want to kind of marry this up to the real world here. So in this scenario, you've got these two operation steps where I've got mill profile topside surfacing, operation 50, and then I've got mill the backside, that's operation 60. Okay, so 50 and 60. So I probably want to do some inspection at each of those two locations, right? And I may even want to do some final inspection as well here and have some things that are checked. But to keep, for simplicity's sake today, we'll just import some dimensions to these two operations here. Okay, so to do that, to get everything correlated correctly, I'm going to use inspection procedures here. There's a couple different ways to do this, but for today, we'll keep things simple. So for that first op 50, I'm going to grab a few dimensions that would be checked at that op 50 stage if we're going to do milling and drilling of the holes and the surfacing like so. All right, so I'm going to grab a few things here, just like this, and then I'm going to click add procedure. So you can see I'm graphically able to select these dimensions that I want to work with and then add a procedure like so. Okay, so I'll just open that procedure up, and we're going to call this procedure 50 to correlate it to that routing step in ProShop. I can also give it the matching title here, but for the sake of time, we're just going to move through that. And then I'll create a second check where I'm going to flip the part over and do backside, and then we'll check a few things like this here, and I'm going to check these notes as well, just like so. Okay, so I'll add a couple additional checks at that stage. Okay, so now I've got a 50 and a 60 that I'll need to check, and some dimensions associated. So you can see there's 14 dims and then 6 dims on the backside, and those are all brought in right here. Okay, great. So some other things I can do, if you look at our dimension editor here, if I double click these, I can open up the dimension editor. If, you know, no OCR engine is perfect. We're just not there yet with technology, right? Nobody is. And so there's times when you need to make adjustments. So we have a very intuitive editor. If you need to make some adjustments, if nominals or tolerancing weren't brought in quite right, if the dimension type wasn't captured correctly, you can modify that. And we have a broad list of dimension types that could be applied here, and so on. But some other things, we can apply some gauge categories, right? To say which inspection tool method we're going to use, also designators if it's a critical, major, minor feature, so on and so forth. We can just apply those here like so, okay? And so those can all be brought in. And we can even do that through a bulk updating tool. There's some like kind of efficiency tools that you can use. So you can say for diameters, I'm just going to grab all those, do a bulk update, and apply a gauge category to all of my diameters and say they're going to be checked on a particular CMM. Okay. So there's a lot of flexibility and options there to work with. But again, for the sake of time, we're going to kind of move pretty quickly through all this. So from here, I went through and I was able to break these up into inspection procedures to say which operation they get checked at. And now I just want to go up to export a part to ProShop. So I've got export to ProShop CSV. I'm going to click that, and we're going to say save in that location. So now I've got this CSV with all of my inspection plan data in it. Okay, so if we look at, there's a preview pane, you can see here, this is all my inspection plan data in that raw CSV file, each of my dimensions that are going to get checked. Okay, so I don't need to open it or do anything to manipulate it. I can just bring it right into ProShop. Okay, oh, and I forgot one detail. We're going to actually output the balloon PDF as well right here like so. So just one click and it exports my ballooned PDF right here like so. All right. And I'm just going to save that to that temporary location so we can pull that up as well. Click save. Now, once you have this really set up and configured in your system, this will save automatically to a designated location where ProShop is more well positioned to ingest it. All right, but I just don't have that set up with the demo right now. And so once I'm in the part record, I would do a couple things. I want to add that balloon PDF. So I'm going to check out the part record, come down here and add the print. Okay, so I can just do a file upload and browse for that drawing. Okay, just want to make sure I have the right one, balloon multi-page drawing. Say open that up, and we're going to save the changes here like so. Okay, so now you can see that this field highlighted green now. It was red before, it's saying that there was no drawing attached, but this becomes a hyperlink, so I can click this and, oh, apparently I'm not set up in the system, Brian.
Yeah, that's just asking for that. This is a security measure. So when you're in the browser, basically your any of your files attached, whether that's your files like this that you're working with now or customer original files, they're actually protected by a password and username because we're a web-based system. Sometimes that server's in the cloud, sometimes it's on premise. So we have extra measures like this. Unfortunately, I don't have the username and password off the top. Well, I have the username, but I just don't have the password off the top of my head. I'd have to look it up for you. But okay, give me just a second, gotcha, and you can kind of come back to that.
Yeah, no worries. So good to show that it's a secure connection at least, right? And so that would give us our link though to view the ballooned PDF, and you saw how it was opening it in a new tab there. So that's good. So we'll circle back if Brian can find the password and send that to me on the side. But Otherwise, that's as simple as it is just to upload that ballooned PDF, right? The next step would be uploading the inspection plan, which we had just exported as well. And so we want to go to our part and launch the CSV here. Okay, so if we say launch CSV, we're able to choose the file that we want to import. Okay, so I'm going to grab that CSV that we had exported, and you have this here. Here we go. All right, so we'll circle back. Brian got me the username and password. We'll circle back to that. So I would go to import the CSV tool, the inspection plan. You see it gives me a preview of this, and it knows the part number because I launched it from that part page. And so I can go into my options and I can choose the config that I want to use. Okay, so we've got a stored configuration. All right, so that maps most of our fields to the ProShop fields here as such. And you can see some of these are being mapped to op60, some are being mapped to op50, and so on. All right, so there's just a couple of things that I would add in here, like so, just to complete the mapping, like so, and then we're good to go forward. All right, so I can go and review my data, and I can see that there's one part that's being brought in, 2 operations are being recognized. So if I want to preview that information, I can take a look at that, make sure it's all being brought in correctly. Then I can say submit. Okay, so I click submit and OK. And that's going to process for a second and says you successfully imported 1 of 1 records. Fantastic. Get a little feedback there, and it brings me to that part record that I can open up and now review. So if I look at op 50 or 60 here, if I click into here, I can see that there's part check info that's populated now, right? So if I click into that part check info, all of my dimensional characteristics have been brought in to the system like so. So you can imagine the amount of typing that you would have had to do before to actually build this out, the amount of room for error and so on. And I can go up to op 60 as well and see the few dimensions that were brought in there. Okay, so all that gets brought in really seamlessly. And now I'm free to move forward to perform my inspections through ProShop, through the work orders as Brian had shown previously, right? So let's go back to that part record real quick, and I'll just close the loop on this guy here. We're gonna grab that password like so. Thank you, Brian. And you can see how it's pulling up that ballooned PDF just like so. All right, so to make that more smooth, because I wouldn't have to type that in every time if I'm actually set up with ProShop. I click and I open it up and it's good to go. Awesome, perfect. All right, and so that's pretty much it in a nutshell as far as the integration there. What I wanted to show real briefly, just to get some concepts there, as Matt suggested, there's some things that we're talking about with 3D Industries, as well as several of our other customers that are they have started just at this level with the ProShop and High QA integration piece and working with the 2 systems together. But as they become more aware of some of the functionality that's available in High QA, they're working to leverage more and more of that. And really get the most out of the 2 systems working together. Right, and so I want to open a different part here that I have, where I prepped a few additional items here. So you can see in this particular inspection plan, I've assigned designators. So I've said which features are critical that I want to check. So I'm able to get into some more advanced sample planning and such, where I can apply sampling rules for which dimensions get checked at what frequency, or have different AQL acceptance criteria and such. I can even build more advanced inspection plans similar to what's mirroring what's going on in ProShop, and defining operational stages and building unique inspection plans per operation with unique frequencies and system checks and such at each of those operation stages. And so I'm able to kind of break things up into jobs. This is something that, over the course of the summer and into the fall, we're going to be deepening our integration with ProShop to be able to sync things like jobs and lots and so on. You can see that we've got this ERP ID field here. So we can actually map through our APIs. We can map the job numbers and the information like the job quantities and statuses and delivery dates and such. All that stuff is possible there down the road as we strengthen this integration going forward. Okay. Awesome. So for the sake of time, I want to leave time for answering questions and such. So we'll cut the demo short there. Obviously, you know, we're happy to get more in depth with things. If you guys are interested in seeing one-to-one demos, we can go through any questions that you would have about how this could be implemented in your shop environments to really maximize your efficiency. So, all right, thank you. Jack, Effie, what do we have for questions?
Okay, there are a whole series of questions there. I know that you and Brian were going to pick which ones you were individually going to answer. So if you want to go ahead and look at that, right now we have a total of 8 questions up on the board.
Okay, so somebody had asked, there's an anonymous question, where do we get the most recent version of High QA? Ours doesn't have the split dim button in the auto ballooning preferences. So that, I mentioned that I'm working with a developer preview of the version that's just about to be released to our general customer base. And so actually a lot of this AQL sampling and such is new in this version. I just wanted to show that for context for everyone. And so that's going to be released very shortly here, and that'll be available through our resources portal in the support center. Okay, so good question. Another one, is it possible for the High QA program to factor in the dim tags into a CMM program, or rather link with a CMM in any way? So the link with a CMM would be more like a policy link, in the sense that you can export inspection plans, like customized Excel reports. You can see we have a report designer, so you can build like a handoff document that you're going to hand to your CMM programmer to coordinate the balloon or the dim tagging for the CMM program. And that way, all of the results coming out of the CMM have dim numbers that match the ballooned print in Inspection Manager, and all the results import, they correlate automatically, and it's a good day, right? So that's the linkage there, more of a policy side of things. Let's see, Brian asked, yep.
Yeah, there is a question, I think, interesting question. 52 minutes after the hour, is there a browser-based SaaS version for High QA, of High QA, and how difficult would it be to integrate with CMM software like Verisurf?
Yeah, I see Dave Olson ask that. I haven't seen Dave in a while. It's it's been a while since any trade shows, but thanks for joining us, Dave. Good question. So we're slowly over time. So we're probably not going to go to a full SaaS model of like one centralized, like kind of multiplayer cloud environment. We're probably going to stick to the on-premise model, but we are moving to more of a browser-based on-premise model, where instead of a desktop application in the future over the next year or two, we'll fully migrate into a web-based application. That's easier from an IT standpoint to deploy. It's easier to build really strong, flexible UI and such. There's a whole bunch of benefits that come from that, right? So that's a direction that we're definitely moving toward. As far as any integration with Verisurf, we're happy to talk. I believe we've actually had a number of conversations with you guys about integrations, and our founder Sam Golan has been working with some Verisurf departments to move that forward. So we're happy to continue those discussions to see what's possible there.
Yeah. And if I can add, the reason why we are not fully in the cloud, we have 2 primary reasons. One, many of our customers don't allow their data to be in the cloud. And when we say cloud, software as a service model, we are relating to a public cloud, right? Because the question that David asked is a SaaS model, meaning are we going to deliver software through a web-based, internet-based cloud, that the software will reside in the public domain and will deliver services to a client that sits, behind a firewall and on-premise. So our approach is not to drive the software into the cloud, into the public cloud, because of two major reasons. One, security. Many of our customers don't want to host parts in the cloud. And the second reason is performance, meaning we have heard about other software packages that are using the cloud, and people take a coffee break when they need to refresh the screen if they have, 200 dimensions or 500 dimensions. Performance on the cloud are not ready for large or medium and large, type of parts and dimension number.
Yeah, with heavy processing, like our OCR technology is. Yep.
Yeah. Regarding to integrating with a CMM, VeriServe type of software, we have an advanced engine, import engine, in which we can certify. We can stand behind the following statement. We can probably integrate anything and bring it in if we have enough samples, and we can certify it either pretty quickly, or we need to conduct small enhancement to our engine and bring it in. But we are confident about integrating CMM information into the software.
Yep. Okay, good. One quick thing. So as far as the SaaS thing, I don't want to beat on it too much, but we do offer private cloud hosting. So we do have some really several large customers that have AWS environments, and they host in their own private cloud, and that's fully possible because we do have a client server model. So it's a pretty flexible system.
Okay.
So, yep. Thomas asked, I believe ProShop has the capability to do a complete AS9102. Will this continue, and/or can the information from ProShop be imported to High QA? So there's a couple different modes in which to work there. Absolutely, ProShop has that capability to work with the AS9102, kind of rolling up the data that's reported from the shop floor and CMMs and such. And so what High QA is doing is basically just handing off the inspection criteria to ProShop, and then ProShop kind of collects the inspection results and rolls up all that information into an AS9102 at the end of the process. So there's not really a need to sync that back into High QA. So it's perfectly fine to have that exist or reside in ProShop. So.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah, there was something that was a little bit related to that earlier. Somebody asked about API. ProShop is working on the API. I know that we've already touched on some of the sort of one-click integrations and stuff like that. Our API will be released a little bit later this year, and so in the not too distant future, we should be seeing some more, just some quicker integrations with High QA, as well as some other softwares out there that just make things a little bit more seamless and a little bit easier to do. Plus, it'll give individual companies the ability to create an interface with other softwares that they want to work with, so they would have some more access into the ProShop information in that sense. So
yeah, there's a good question at 11:43. So there's an anonymous attendee asked, does the OCR work on scanned in drawings, or does it have to be a native PDF? Yes, we can absolutely work scanned drawings, no question. The only question there is how automated is it versus how much manual intervention do I have to do? So what's the resolution of that scanned print? We've seen a wide range of print quality coming in from scanned scanners. And so the OCR technology is very, very good. As I mentioned earlier, best in class. And so it'll do as good of a job as it can of identifying the dimensions and extracting the criteria. And so I've seen scanned prints where you can get 80–90% accuracy. I've seen scanned prints where you can get only 20 or 30% accuracy in it. So it just really, it's circumstantial in a way. But even for those where the auto ballooning gets 20–30% accuracy, we still have a wide variety of tools available to be able to manually capture dimensions and populate the information in here faster than you would be able to with just about any other tool on the market. So something to think about there.
Chris, the question by Brian, 1140 or 40 after the hour, I think it's an excellent question. Yeah, the European standard and so forth. Yeah.
Okay, good question. Yeah, so Brian asked, what happens when a spec is not recognized, such as a European notation, that it has not dealt with previously? So as I've just mentioned with the scanned-in prints, so if there's a spec that isn't interpreted properly for whatever reason, there's always the DIM editor where we can make adjustments and such as we go. So there's kind of some tools that I didn't really get into, but a way to quickly move from one dimension to the next and review each of the dimensions. And it's basically just you tag them, you go next, next, next for the ones that are clean and good, and then you pause and make a quick adjustment to anything that needs to be adjusted, and then keep moving. So something I'll say about the European notations is the version that we're just about to release, version 5.1, which you can see I've got an early developer preview of up here. That version has some pretty substantial advancements in the OCR technology that were specifically targeted towards European style prints that have a couple of things like variable spacing around decimal points, and they have some unique things that they do with tolerance stacking on the prints, some unique styles for that. And so we had some prints that we worked with a very large customer in the UK to kind of establish that and do some benchmark testing, and they went from 15 to 18% recognition and accuracy. That's 15% accuracy, all the way up to about 85% accuracy. And so with that rework of the OCR engine, so that we're very excited to be able to release that shortly. So,
all right. Well, hey, I wanted to say thank you for everyone that attended. I am out of time. I actually need to move on with some other client meetings that I have scheduled right now. But it sounds like, you know, we have a few unanswered questions, and I believe, I don't know if you guys are going to stick around and kind of answer those, or if we're going to do some email responses.
We are very happy to stick around for 10, 15 minutes and complete those. I see with that, and these will also, those that are interested will stay with us, and we can complete some other later, but we will stay here. Thank you, Brian. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, everyone, again. Yeah, I appreciate it. And I look forward to chatting more directly with a few of you folks here in the not too distant future. So have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Brian. All right, so yeah, we can keep moving through a couple of these questions for anyone that wants to stick around. If you have to leave, though, for time constraints like Brian did, we'll be sending out the recording of this session, and any questions that we don't end up getting to, we'll be able to follow up directly with folks. So there's an anonymous user that asked, can High QA support part calibrations such as gauge block and ISO 17025? Yeah, so that's something that the short answer is no, we don't do that today. The more involved answer is it is in our roadmap. It is a very high priority for us. It's a really hot topic right now. It's in development work, and it's something that we'll have we're planning to have by the end of the year, somewhere in the 3rd to 4th quarter range.
Yeah, we do support the latest calibration date and information, but we don't support the entire history and some of the R&R aspects.
Yeah, so basically
partial support.
Yeah, so basically calibration statusing and such. I believe I'm still sharing my screen, and so if you look at some of our gauge management here, you can see like there's calibration details here. So we're tracking the gauge status for like the calibration date, the next due date, and such, all that information. But as far as like managing your in-house calibration processes, that's something that's coming out in the fall / early or 4th quarter timeframe. Okay, so that's very good. Dan asked, what about rough dimensions as opposed to finished dimensions? That's a fantastic question. It's something that we handle really well. As I mentioned, there is definitely more depth that we can get into regarding the detail at which you break down the inspection plans. So I had shown how to use inspection procedures to kind of break up and filter the dimensions into operational steps. There's another method of doing that where you can do manufacturing operations. I chose not to do that just because of the complexity of it for the sake of a webinar, but this allows you to get much more advanced and basically create fully unique inspection criteria for dimensions across those operations. So you can have a dimension that gets checked at each operational stage or multiple operational stages, if you will, and manage the criteria at each of those stages. So you can alter the nominals, the tolerancing, or the inspection method that should be used to inspect the feature, literally anything about the feature at each of the stages independently. So that it's highly flexible, and all that information can be synchronized with ProShop as well. Just a little bit of a different approach. Good question. All right, Charlie asked, I thought I heard that you can automatically run ballooning on a set of drawings in a directory. Is that true? It is absolutely true. So what Charlie's getting at here is there is a add-on that we, or a module that can be purchased to do a bulk import of PDF drawings. Just your standard 2D prints without balloons. And so you would just take a whole folder full of those PDFs and point Inspection Manager at it and say, here, import all the drawings that are in this folder, do a bulk import, and auto balloon all of them all the way through. And we can do some kind of tailoring within that engine to tell it some specifics about the way that your prints are laid out. There's some flexibility there to kind of program it, so to speak. And what you do is just let it run. It might, depending on how many prints you have, it might take a few hours, it might take a few days. But we've done that for like thousands or tens of thousands of prints at a time, as like kind of an onboarding mechanism for new customers coming on board that want to just bulk add all of their prints into the system. And so what that does is it gets a lot of the roughing work done for you, if you will, for just that work of bringing in and doing the initial auto ballooning. It's a pretty good time saver there because it can happen in the background. And what you would do is basically import them with a color code. So you say everything that was imported gets marked in red here in my full repository. And then as I open them up, verify the inspection plan and add any additional details. And now it's kind of an active part in my system that I've visually verified. I can move it to like color green or something. And so I can kind of distinguish between parts that have been touched versus parts that were just initially brought in. So there's some really cool options there. Good question, Charlie. Let's see, Terry asked, any integration with Team Center? Interesting. So I'm loosely familiar with Team Center. I know it's kind of like a PLM type software. The integration component, I suppose, would be something along the lines of being able to automatically pull or map part records or part files into High QA. And so I guess the short answer is no, we don't do any direct integration with Team Center, although we do have a fully functional API in which we could build any sort of like custom integration if you needed. So that's something that we could potentially talk about if you have a particular use case that you'd like to explore there. Now, if you're talking about an integration between Team Center and ProShop, that's something that may be possible as, I don't want to speak too much for them. They would have to kind of confirm all of this, but I just know some things about their road mapping, that they are coming out with a more advanced API this summer, at which that would be a similar answer for them as well, I believe.
Yeah, and I would add, this is Effie, I would add integration is just a big, it's really a big term. And it's always about the details of the integration. What is the data set that you want to share? Is it one direction? Is it bidirectional? Does it relate to any business logic, or it's just an initiation in which you want the part, you want to complete the work in different systems, then you just want the final product. So it's all in the details, but both High QA and ProShop products have we have IQA, we have already a full-featured open API based on the open standard API. And ProShop is coming out really shortly in a matter of few weeks, I believe, or a month, with a very similar API on their side.
Yep.
And then things are, possible based on the scope of the integration.
Yep. And again, just to reiterate too, you have High QA folks on the call at this point. So we don't want to speak for ProShop, but that's the general inclination we've got from them through discussions that we have from time to time. Okay, so Terry asked another question. Can you flip between inch and metric dimensions? That's a really good question. Here, I'll show it to you real briefly because it's pretty quick to demonstrate. Right now, we're working in metric. Actually, this part is technically in inches, so this is going to look a little funny, but whatever you define the base unit in here, so if this is metric or inch, then clicking the button up here, it says show alternate units. It'll flip it on the print visually so that you can create a balloon PDF with those alternate dimensions if you were inspecting in alternate dimensions, right? And so you can also export inspection plans and such with those alternate dimensions. You can see we've got requirement, nominal, upper and lower tolerancing here. So that's whatever the base unit is in. But if you scroll over a little bit in here, you'll see requirement, nominal, upper and lower with brackets. These ones are the alternate units that are automatically calculated. So you can build all kinds of custom reports that pull from the base or the alternate units. We can even kind of have mixed units in the inspection plan. If some of the dimensions are inches versus other ones are in metric, you can do that as well on a dimension by dimension basis. And when we import results or when you report results manually, you can specify if you're reporting it in inches or metric. So that's if you're kind of leaning on our system for that full inspection management. And as far as ProShop goes, I don't know what they have for the ability to record results in alternate unit types. They would have to speak to that separately. But we definitely fully support that in any which way you can think to manipulate things. So last question, Dan asks, does the High QA interface tablet report shop floor counts that are automatically visible in ProShop? So I think what Dan is getting at here is we do have a shop floor interface. I can just show it real briefly. It looks something like this. So this is something that we have for shop floors. You can put this on a tablet, you can put it on a PC workstation, but this is basically your digital inspection plan within High QA to be able to have a ballooned PDF that's interactive, right? I can move around and see which dimensions I want to check on. I've got a full inspection plan here. I can choose which operation I'm currently working in. This one doesn't have ops. Here we go. So I've got different procedures in this one, 50 and 60 here. And then I can record my results. So this is kind of for manual inspections. I can record the gauge that I'm using to inspect the feature and the specific result that I get. This will interface with digital gauging equipment that's like wireless or wired to just push a button and input the result as well. So there's a lot of cool options with this shop floor interface. Now, Dan is asking if this will record the results directly into ProShop. So not today. That's something that's a little bit segmented between the two systems, but that's something that we're talking about. We've mentioned multiple times over the call that we're looking to strengthen the depth of the integration that we have. And so as ProShop comes out with that more advanced API, that's something that we're going to be looking at doing. That's one of the low-hanging fruit items, if you will, is if you're collecting results through Inspection Manager, sync those into ProShop so that way everything's visible in that one system. Okay, so we can get into kind of the nuts and bolts with any of you guys on the call individually to kind of map out the best way to coordinate all that or implement it in your shop. We've done that with a pretty large number of customers at this point. You know, I think by the end of 2019, we might have had like 10 or 12 joint customers with ProShop. I think now we're up over
30, probably.
Over 30 now, yeah, somewhere around there.
Yeah,
I forget, but yeah. So we're growing the joint customer base, if you will, and we're seeing more and more use cases and learning more and more as we go. So it's a good relationship.
And as Matt indicated, this level of work can only be done if both vendors are committed, and there is a longer horizon here and alignment of strategy, and both vendors are fully committed for the long term.
Yep. And one last quick question that came in. Somebody asked, how do you remove the metric columns from the bill of characteristics? So I'll generalize that question of how do you customize this bill of characteristics? If you feel that there's just a lot of stuff that you don't need, you can always right click on the column headers, select columns, and choose what you want to have displayed versus not in this list. And that's something that's customizable or configurable on a per user basis. So you would do that for each user, can have their own sort of grid view here. So it's a good, quick little nitty gritty question, but good deal. All right, thanks, Will. All right, and I think that clears up the last of the questions that we had. So Jack, back to you if you want to kind of wrap things up.
Absolutely. I want to thank everyone that stayed to the very end here. We do appreciate the time that you've taken to listen to ProShop and High QA and a little bit from one of our actual users. The information on your screen gives you a way to contact both companies, both by phone, email, and by website. A recording of this session will be sent out, a link to the recording rather, will be sent out to everyone tomorrow. In the meantime, if you do have additional questions, feel free to email us or call us, and we'll be more than happy to answer as soon as we can get the information from you, your questions. Thank you once again, and have a good day.
Yes, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.